Imagine waking up one day, stretching, yawning, and looking outside only to see complete and utter darkness. No golden sunrise, no birds chirping, and no warmth on your skin. The sun has simply decided to clock out early, leaving Earth in an eternal night. At first, you might think, hey, this could be kinda cool, no sunburns, no blinding glares off my phone screen, and permanent hoodie weather. But give it a few hours and things start going south fast. 8 minutes of bliss, and then darkness. Here's a fun fact. It takes approximately 8 minutes for sunlight to travel from the sun to Earth. So if our favorite fiery star suddenly went out, we'd get one last glowing farewell before total darkness set in. In those precious few minutes, the world would look the same. People would still be stuck in traffic, scrolling through their phones or drinking coffee, blissfully unaware that the biggest cosmic catastrophe in history had just begun. Then boom, darkness. Streetlights, headlights, and phone screens would become our only sources of illumination. But that's just the start of our problems. With no sun, temperatures would start dropping rapidly, and it wouldn't take long before our once habitable planet turned into a frozen wasteland. Within days, plants would stop photosynthesizing, leading to a collapse of the food chain. The oceans would begin to freeze from the surface down, trapping marine life in an icy tomb. And without the sun's gravitational pull keeping planets in check, the solar system itself could spiral into chaos. The Big Freeze. Without the sun warming our atmosphere, global temperatures would plummet. Within a few days, we'd be looking at a deep freeze. Oceans would begin to ice over, lakes would solidify, and cities would turn into unintentional winter wonderlands. But before you start planning your dream Ice Age aesthetic, consider this. The temperature would eventually drop to around minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 73 degrees Celsius. That's colder than the coldest place on Earth today, Antarctica. And it gets worse. Within a year, our oceans would completely freeze over. But, and this is weirdly interesting, there would still be liquid water deep under the ice. That's because Earth's core would still be producing heat. Just like how the deep oceans on moons like Europa and Enceladus stay liquid despite freezing outer layers. But let's be real, unless you have a nuclear-powered underground bunker ready, survival would be nearly impossible. The cold alone would be a nightmare, but oxygen levels would also start plummeting, making it even harder to stay alive. Say goodbye to oxygen. Here's something most people don't realize. Most of the oxygen we breathe doesn't come from trees, it comes from ocean algae. And guess what? Those algae need sunlight to survive. Without the sun, photosynthesis stops, which means no more oxygen production. Within a few months, oxygen levels would start depleting, and humans, along with most land-based animals, would struggle to breathe. Sure, we could try to build artificial oxygen generators, but how long could they realistically sustain billions of people? As oxygen levels drop, people would start passing out left and right, and civilization as we know it would collapse faster than you can say, "Where's my oxygen mask?" And it wouldn't just be us, plants would suffocate too, cutting off our last natural food sources. The air would become thin and toxic, making survival nearly impossible outside of controlled environments. Eventually, Earth would turn into a barren wasteland, eerily resembling the lifeless landscapes of Mars. Underground or bust. So where could humans go? 2 words: underground bunkers. To survive, people would need to dig deep, literally. Underground cities powered by geothermal energy would be the only option. Forget sky-high skyscrapers and tropical vacations. The New World Order would consist of deep, dark tunnels, where sunlight is just a distant memory. Living in permanent darkness would also have a bizarre effect on human evolution. With no sunlight, our bodies would mutate over generations. Our skin would become paler, our eyes larger, to adjust to darkness, and our hearing more sensitive. Imagine a future where humans resemble eerie underground creatures with massive eyes and ghostly white skin. But that's not all. Our diets would shift entirely. No fresh fruits or vegetables, just lab-grown food and fungi. Our circadian rhythms would break down, forcing humans to rely on artificial clocks instead of natural daylight. And psychologically, living without the sun could drastically alter mental health, making depression and isolation major challenges. And if you think that's weird, wait until you hear about the tardigrades. The rise of the tardigrades. Tardigrades, also known as water bears, are tiny, near-indestructible creatures that can survive practically anything, from the vacuum of space to extreme radiation. And guess what? They don't need sunlight. With most life wiped out, these microscopic weirdos would become the dominant species. Over millions of years, they could evolve into gigantic versions of themselves. Imagine tardigrades the size of polar bears, lumbering around the frozen wasteland. Suddenly, humans aren't at the top of the food chain anymore. With their extreme resilience, these mega-tardigrades could develop new adaptations, perhaps even advanced intelligence. Imagine a world where they evolve complex communication or even rudimentary civilization. Would they become the new rulers of Earth, crafting societies in the ice? Or would they remain mindless, unstoppable beasts, dominating a frozen wasteland where only the strongest survive? If you ever thought a post-apocalyptic world ruled by enormous, indestructible water bears would make a cool sci-fi movie, well, you might just get your wish. The real question is, would humanity ever stand a chance at reclaiming its place if the sun disappeared complete? Now, let's take it up a notch. What if the sun completely vanished? No more dark but still orbiting Earth scenario, just gone, poof, into nothingness. That would be really bad news. The sun's gravity is what keeps our entire solar system together. If it disappeared, planets would go flying off into space like marbles on a slick table. Some might collide with each other, while others would just float endlessly through the void. Earth would likely drift aimlessly through the universe, a frozen, lifeless rock floating through the abyss. We'd be cosmic hitchhikers, hoping to one day stumble upon another star to orbit. But let's be honest, the chances of survival are close to zero. Without the sun's warmth, our planet's surface would rapidly freeze over, turning Earth into an icy wasteland within days. The last surviving humans, if any, might take refuge deep underground or in deep-sea thermal vents, clinging to the last remnants of heat. But even then, survival would be a ticking clock, the real nightmare. If Earth were to get captured by another star system, we'd have no idea what kind of new environment we'd be thrown into. Would it be hospitable or something far worse? The silver lining? Alright, so this has been super depressing. But here's the good news. The sun isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Scientists estimate that our sun still has about 5 billion years of fuel left before it expands into a red giant and eventually burns out. So while this apocalyptic nightmare scenario is fun to imagine, we won't be around to see it unless, of course, humans figure out how to live for billions of years, which, let's be honest, is pretty unlikely. And even if we do somehow extend our lifespans, we'd probably have mastered interstellar travel by then. Who knows? Maybe humanity will have colonized to distant exoplanets, making the fate of our sun a minor inconvenience rather than a total catastrophe. The future is uncertain, but one thing's for sure, our curiosity and resilience will keep pushing us forward, no matter what cosmic challenges await. And that's a wrap, folks. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a world without the sun, smash that like and subscribe. And hey, if the sun ever does go out, at least we'll all have you two to keep us entertained. Oh wait.